As part of the Clear-Sighted Online Learning Series, we welcome you to today's webinar titled, Your Competitive Advantage, Stand Out in Today's Job Market. This webinar is for job seekers who are looking for insights into how they can stand out or distinguish themselves in a competitive marketplace. So today, with the help of our expert, we will provide you with the hiring manager and employer perspectives, as well as give you some tips that should help you and some guidance on some mistakes to avoid making. My name is Sharon Kane. I'm Director of Professional and Academic Programs with the Notre Dame Alumni Association. And I am pleased to introduce our presenter today, Jade Augustine. Jade is the Vice President, North America, Human Resources for CareerBuilder. CareerBuilder is the largest online employment company in North America, and she's been with them for 10 years. She brings with her today 19 years of human resources experience and extensive background in conducting training and workshops for job seekers. On the education front, Jade received her BA from Purdue and her MBA from the University of Notre Dame's Mendoza College of Business. So as we get started, the topics that we're going to cover include an overview of the job market. Then we're going to turn our sights on what are the insights that we know from hiring managers, what is the marketplace telling us, and then focus in on some best practices and, yes, what we want to avoid, and then do a recap. So with that, I will turn it over to Jade. Welcome to Clear-Sighted, Jade, and thank you for today's presentation.
Thank you, Sharon. In today's job market, it is important to differentiate yourself from the competition. It's a very competitive landscape, and there are many things that you can do in your job search to differentiate yourself from those candidates. You want to make sure that in an ever-changing landscape of use of social media, to know how you can set yourself apart. There are many different networking sites and talent networks, ways that you can get your information out there. But in addition to that, companies are also utilizing different types of technology to find the candidates. It's a very rapidly evolving environment, and both candidates, it's benefiting them, but it's also benefiting the companies in terms of being able to more quickly find the talent that's going to fit the open positions and find the best spot for those roles. So I think it's important to take a look at insights from what a hiring manager is looking for as they're selecting new talent for their team. Now, of course, this varies based on the individual, the industry within which they work, and many different factors. But I would say overall there are some common themes that we see in terms of how a manager is going to look at those individuals that they're hiring to their team. So first and foremost, assessing company culture. Of course, a hiring manager is going to take a look at the core responsibilities of the job and how the candidate's background and experience stacks up against those requirements. But in addition to that, more so than ever, it's really important to gauge the importance of how that individual is going to fit within the culture or within that environment within which they're working. And therefore, as a candidate, you need to know what that culture is and how you can best align yourself and speak to the qualities that you have that would make you a good fit for that environment. The second area would be the impact of social media. We know that this is very present in the job search today, and managers more so than ever, there's an increasing trend of managers doing research of their own through different types of social media and internet searches on the candidates that they're considering. So 43% of employers use social media to search for their candidates. More than half make a decision not to hire somebody based on information that they found online. And so we know that this is important, but make sure that your social media presence is current and up to date, and it's reflective of how you would like to be seen to a potential employer. Now, it's not all negative, of course. There are many positive reasons that an employer might be drawn to your profile. 33% of hiring managers make favorable decisions based on positive information that they found. So, for example, perhaps philanthropic efforts that you've been involved in, or other types of charitable organizations that you've had an impact on, those things are going to highlight your experiences and could result in a favorable outcome. And then lastly, resources and tools. There are many different ways that employers are going to assess their candidates. Some have very manual processes today where it might be a little bit more time-consuming, while others have adopted very sophisticated technology which allow them to assess candidates more quickly and therefore are able to identify those candidates that are going to be a better fit. So when you think about your search, keeping in mind that the hiring manager at different companies or different organizations are going to have different tools that are available to them, and that will certainly impact the way that the process is going to go from your perspective. And then, in terms of recruiter involvement, using market data to make decisions. There's more and more data than ever before that job seekers and companies have access to in terms of trends, that job seekers, decisions that they're making, and so being able to have that information has been helping hiring managers and companies in their selection process. So, with that being said, what's the best way for you to stand out as a candidate? We know that there are many basics in terms of having a fresh, current, well-read resume, presenting yourself well in the interview and phone screen process. But there are things that employers are telling us about the candidate applications that are important to them. Some of these might seem somewhat basic, but it's amazing to me how often we don't see these things in candidates that are either applying for our jobs or in research that we're conducting. The first is that hiring managers prefer that a resume is customized for their open position. So rather than just sending in a generic resume, making sure you're taking the time to speak to the job that you're applying to, and perhaps even highlighting those areas of your background that could speak to the job that you're applying to. Next, the cover letter. In today's marketplace, I would say that we do see more candidates that are not supplying a cover letter, but I still feel like it's very important, and especially in a situation where you might be making a shift in your career to perhaps a different industry, or you're trying to highlight a change that you're making. A resume that isn't always able to do that. However, a cover letter, an effectively written, concise cover letter is going to really tell that hiring manager or the recruiter what's important to you, and also how you are going to sell yourself and add value to the organization. Next, hiring managers prefer that a resume is addressed to the hiring manager or the recruiter. So if you have the time, there's so much information that is available online. You can go directly to the customer's or to the company's website. You're able to do some additional research. If you happen to know individuals that work at that company, you can ask and find a little bit of information out about who the hiring manager is or who the head of the recruiting department is. Take that extra time, because to show that you've made that effort and you've personalized the resume or the cover letter, that is going to set you apart from other candidates that are sending in information as to whom it may concern or just generically addressing the organization. And then lastly, if you're able to, provide a link to information that's going to tell more about you. So perhaps it's not everything captured within the resume, but if you have a website that you're proud of, a blog that demonstrates your work, and an online portfolio. For example, if you're working in the marketing space and you've got a lot of great work you'd like to highlight, make it easy for that employer to find that information. They're going to do the searching anyways in most cases, so go ahead and make it easy for them and show them the work that you've been able to accomplish. So what employers say, it's amazing to me to know that in research we've done, nearly half of interviewers make the decision within the first 5 minutes of an interview if the candidate is going to be a good fit for this position or not. So that's not a lot of time. You really need to make a good first impression. And building on top of that, nearly 90% of hiring managers, by 15 minutes into the conversation, have already made that determination whether or not they think you're going to be a good fit or not. So that goes to say that making sure you're prepared and have a good representation of yourself in those in the first critical minutes of a phone screen or of an in-person interview to really show and demonstrate that you're a good fit for this role. So that said, here are some tips that will help you stand out. You know, if you want to make a good first impression, talking to that hiring manager, come prepared. And here are some great ways that you can do that. The first being, know if the company has gone through a major change. For example, have they recently brought on a new CEO to head their organization, or have they recently acquired a new company that's going to help propel them into the marketplace? So knowing this information and building it into your questions or the conversations throughout the interview is going to show that you're prepared and that you're informed and interested in the organization. Next, press releases. There's a lot of information that's available at your fingertips, and so taking the time prior to an interview to see what's been in the news lately about that organization, or even the person that you're meeting with, being able to speak to those things in the interview will lead to a lot of credibility, and it's amazing to me still that there are many people that don't take this extra time or don't mention it, so it will distinguish you and separate you amongst a pool of other candidates. Next, this seems pretty basic, but being familiar with the company, the industry, the key competitors, taking that time to do that additional research will allow you to speak intelligently and perhaps even shape your interviewing answers when questions are asked of you to build that into how you feel that you could help, how you feel like you could add value to the organization based on your industry knowledge or knowledge of competitors that are within that space. Knowing the core customers of the company, and then lastly, being familiar with the job description you'll be discussing. Oftentimes that's the starting point for job seekers to review the job description, and that often is the call to action, and then maybe it's not referenced again. So being able to really dig deep, you can learn a lot about what a company is looking for just based on how they word the job description, even the order of prioritization of the information that's added, and really pull your questioning from that job description once again, so that you not only can the employer see that you are asking good questions, but it's going to allow you to get a better picture of that company and learn about is it going to be a good fit for you as well. So the questioning goes both ways. So mistakes to avoid. You know, I think one of the things that we get a lot of questions about is what's the best way to follow through with a recruiter or with a hiring manager? Is it still okay to send a personal note, or is an email suffice? And, you know, in my opinion, there is really no right or wrong way to do that, but I think what is important is to have timely follow-through, making sure it's personal and personable, and then also expressing interest. You want to know, as an employer, I want to know that an individual is genuinely interested in this opportunity. Are you just looking for a job or a stepping stone to the next opportunity, or is this something that you really are going to invest in, work hard, and add value to that organization? And so being able to demonstrate that in a variety of ways, whether it's a phone call, personal note, email correspondence, is really going to show that you're interested and keep you current in the process. The next one is being too focused on the job but not enough on the company. This goes back to what we were mentioning earlier, talking about the company culture. And I can't speak to this enough. You know, I feel that a job is a job, and you might have the same job description or a very similar job description in two different companies. But how that job operates within each of those environments might look very different based on that culture or how that company operates. So for example, it might be important to know and understand how the company makes decisions, who the leaders are within the organization, and how they operate. Oftentimes that really does set the tone for how the company works, and is that something that you would like to be a part of? Asking questions about growth. Where is the company going? What are its greatest challenges right now? And so not only focusing on the job, but making sure that you invest time in learning about the company, going deep and wide and knowing what's on their roadmap and understanding the people who are leading the charge will really help give a bigger picture of the opportunity that you're pursuing. So the job, could change a few years down the road, but the organization is one that you want to make sure that you connect with and identify with so that you're fulfilled and happy in the work that you're doing. Another mistake that we often see is not showing how you'll add value to the organization. And it's important that when you're answering questions that the interviewer is asking, whether that's the hiring manager or the recruiter, making sure you take it to the next step. So not only answering a question about your previous work experience or about projects that you've worked on or accomplishments that you've had, but then taking it to the next step and saying, and here's why I feel this is going to impact your organization. This is how I feel that the experiences that I've had up to this point in my career are going to add value to your organization and help you achieve your goals. So taking it to the next step and really showing and demonstrating so that they can visualize you in the organization and that they think that you would be a good fit. And lastly, demonstrating how your values align with the company mission and values. And so this is a nice segue in from talking about the organization, but I would say takes it to the next level. And so we all have different preferences and things that are important to us as individuals, and I think it's important as you're going through your job search to be true to those things. You don't want to be something that you're not just to get a job. You want to make sure that your values and what's important to you are going to be a match for the employer that you're working with. And there are many ways that you can learn this. There's tons of information about companies, whether it's their company website or if you're able to connect with people that work in that environment, or even asking questions around this to the individuals that you're talking with through the interviewing process. But making sure that it's a two-way street and that you know that it's okay to ask those questions, because ultimately that's going to lead to your overall satisfaction and make you a happier employee and more productive in the role. So to recap what we've discussed, it's really important starting off thinking about the big picture, understanding the job market that we are in today. It's a very competitive job market. There's a lot of information out there and great tools and resources that are available to you as a job seeker and also available to a company to gauge the workforce. So one of the things I highlight here is the supply and demand of jobs. If you're looking for a particular type of job or looking for a switch within an industry, find that information. You can see if Denver has more job openings in this particular category than Chicago, for example. Or are there more candidates that you would be competing with in California versus New York? So there's a lot of data that you can get your fingers on early on in the process to understand that landscape, and understanding that is going to allow you to position yourself better or more strategically through that interviewing process. We talk about unemployment rate, understanding what the labor market looks like, what are the trends, understanding where there are skills gaps. Within this nation in particular and around the world, we're seeing a shortage of skills in many different areas, and understanding where there are those shortages, perhaps you have transferable skills that you could work towards bridging that gap and repositioning yourself so that you might be able to pursue a different career, but those are jobs that might be in very high demand, and therefore you would have better luck at finding something based on understanding the bigger picture on where there's a greater need. Secondly, understanding the hiring manager and the recruiter's perspective. It's hard to know this, and again, as I mentioned earlier, it does vary based on the individual and the company and the culture. But I would say your takeaway should be hiring managers have more tools than ever that they have available to them to research candidates, to make quicker decisions, to understand and to use matching technology so that a candidate's resume is going to be best aligned to the job description that they have for their opening, using different types of technology, both internally and externally, utilizing social media and different online networking platforms so that they're able to connect with a greater reach of candidates. So understanding that those are the demands and the things that are top of mind for a hiring manager will allow you to be more conversant on those areas and understand how to position yourself accordingly. And then finally, we talked about a few mistakes that you want to make sure you avoid. The lack of follow-up. I think things have become a bit more casual in the job search arena. We don't see as much handwritten correspondence anymore, but you still want to make sure that you're timely in your follow-up and make sure that you show a genuine interest in an opportunity if it's something that you are really passionate about pursuing. And the lack of follow-through might indicate to a hiring manager or to a recruiter that you're not interested. So make sure you keep that basic in mind. Failing to show how you'll add value to the organization. Again, take it to the next level. Show and demonstrate why your background and experience is going to add value to that organization. Getting caught up on the job title instead of the company, making sure that you're looking at the full package, not just the job, but the position and the company and the direction that company is going. Is it a fast-paced organization, or is it one that operates a bit more slowly based on the industry that they're in? Understanding those things will help you make the best fit for the position that you are looking for. So I think in closing, keeping these things in mind will help position you best both within the labor market, positioning you most effectively with the hiring managers, and ultimately helping you find the right fit for you as you go about your career search and showing how you can add value into the organization. Thank you.
Thank you, Jade. Appreciate you sharing that information with us. So we know that hiring in general is challenging, almost regardless of the job market, the business cycles, the economic cycles. It's a challenge. And so what is the research telling us about how companies and how hiring managers are going about hiring for fit to position, fit to the culture, fit, where there's values alignment? As you noted earlier, that's where we do our best work and add the most values, whether that values alignment between our personal and organizational values is there. So are there tools that companies are using, and what is the research telling us about the fit that all of us are looking for?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think, there are many assessment tools out there today that allow companies, if they choose to use them, to make those determinations and make sure that it's a profile that's going to align with those most engaged employees that they have working for them. But there are a lot of things that hiring managers can do during the interviewing process. For example, asking many behavioral questions to get a feel for the environment within which candidates worked previously. So even just by asking about, tell me an example of a time that you were able to, achieve a personal goal or add value within the organization. So in those examples, the hiring manager is able to really understand the environment within which they worked, and were they happy in that environment, or do they start to share frustration in how things were operating in that organization? And so those are cues that as a hiring manager you need to be able to pick up on and know that you can probe and find out a lot about the previous environments that they chose to work for and in, and where they seemed most engaged and happiest in their work. Do they get excited about what they're talking about? And when they talk about how the company was evolving and it was changing very rapidly and there were lots of stumbling blocks along the way, but it was fun and I enjoyed that type of work? Or did those sorts of things frustrate the individual? And it's clear that perhaps they weren't as happy in that type of work. And so I think just by perhaps asking certain questions that will give more context around the environments that they worked, and then knowing that it's an important part of making the hiring decision.
Great. And what does the marketplace require or look for, almost regardless of what industry you're in or what level of position or level in an organization, position type? Are there some universal things, skills, attributes that the research is telling us that the marketplace requires?
Yeah, I would say what the common themes that we would see would be having critical thinking skills, for example. In a very rapidly changing environment, and we're growing very rapidly globally, as a culture, and knowing that you need to be able to adapt very quickly, and being able to respond to those demands, I think, is something that we're seeing, whether it's an entry-level position or if it's a senior-level role within the organization. Things are moving very quickly, and I think you're looking for those skills of somebody who's adaptable, who takes initiative, and is able to act independently, and making sure that they're not waiting for somebody to tell them what to do, for example, but that they take that initiative and can make an impact without, having to wait, for example.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again for the presentation and for the responses to the questions. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for joining us for this Clear-Sighted Career webinar. I want to encourage you to and invite you to tap into other Clear-Sighted webinars that are located on the my.nd.edu webpage, as well as the Alumni Association's YouTube channel. So with that, I will say thank you.